Alrighty then. Today we pick up with the Song of Moshe and Miriam, the songs of Moshe and Miriam, in chapter 15 of Shemot. That's Exodus to the uninitiated. To paraphrase Kasuto, this song is divided into three distinct parts: verses 1 through 6, 7 through 11, and 12 through 16, with an epilogue in verses 17 and 18 at the end of each of those sections. Certain words are repeated at the end of each section: your right hand, who is like you, and various uses of the word till, until, till, when. You know. There is also a simile in each section. Verse 5 has a stone. Verse 10 has as lead. They sunk as stone, they sunk as lead. And then again in 16, it's as a stone. The song is classified as an ode of triumph. All right, so please stand and cover yourselves for the reading of our scripture, because we do have a law today. All right, for those of you who may not know, standing and covering yourself with the talit is not a biblical law. It is a tradition that we do as a show of respect to the law, but I'm tethered to wires, so I remain sitting. Anyway, we begin today, our verse anyway is from Shemot. It's 15:26, or Exodus 15:26. It says, "Vayomer im shamoa tishma lekol Yahweh Elohecha behayashar be'enai ta'aseh beha'azanta lemitzvotav Veshamarta kol chukai kol hamahala asher santi bemitzrayim lo asim aleha ki ani Yahweh rofecha." All right, so you can see it. We will begin with verse 1. This is my translation. I'm not given to using other people's translations. Verse 1 says, "Then Moshe and the children of Israel sang this song to Yahweh. And they uttered, saying, I will sing to Yahweh, for triumphing he has triumphed. The horse and the rider are thrown into the sea." Literally, it said, "will sing." I said, the children of Israel sang. Rashi said, the future tense signifies that on beholding the miracle, Moshe determined that he would sing the song in the future. Onkelos translated it sang, as did I, in the past tense, referring to the simple meaning over the literal. The Babylonian Talmud, Sanhedrin 91b to be exact, and the Mechilta say that the future tense alludes to the resurrection of the dead. You'll have to read them to get that. Verse 2, it says, Yah is my strength and song, and he is my salvation. This is my God, and I will adore him, and the God of my fathers, and I will exalt him. Now, even Ezra and Nachmanides both render this my strength and song, where it says, in mine, my strength and song. They render it my strength and song. But they say it's as in my strength, and the strength of my song is the Lord. Pretty much the same thing. Even Ezra said, this is my God. He said that those words, this is my God, meant he is my powerful Savior. Okay. Rashi said, I will adore. I wrote glorify, but it's the same word, same meaning. I will adore, or I will glorify him. Rashi said it meant, I will describe his beauty. In other words, his praise to all mankind. So Rashi is saying that in order for us to glorify God, for us to adore God, we must describe his beauty through praises to to other men and women, to mankind. Onkelos said that we glorify God by serving him. The Sforno said, God of my fathers meant, I will exalt him through complete submission to his will. Even Ezra added, and by recounting his greatness. So even Ezra is agreeing that you exalt God through complete submission to his will, and he added, by recounting his greatness. So verse 3 says, Yahweh is a man of war. Yahweh is his name. Onkelos changed it to master of victory in war. The addition of the word victory implies that God is not physically engaged in battle, but influences the outcome. Even Ezra said, a man of war means he upholds those who cleave to him and aids them against their enemies. Rashbam said Yahweh is his name means his name is known through the justice he executes. So let's think about this. He's saying, Rashbam said that Yahweh is his name. What that means by saying Yahweh is his name, he says the meaning of that is his name is known through the justice he executes. So God's name is known because of what he does. Now the word name, where we're translating that, is the word is Shem, and it's a name. It's anyone's name, but more importantly, it's their authority. So it's of a celebrated name of someone famous, sure. It's to make oneself a name, to acquire a name for yourself, to acquire fame for yourself. It's all that. A good name, a good reputation, it's used in those ways. But there's a note that I've added to my version of I'm doing a new concordance instead of the Jacinius. I'm doing a newer one, and I've added this note. It comes literally from the Strong's Concordance. There's like two things from that concordance that I actually use, and this is one of them. It said, by usage, chiefly Hebraistic. Should be 100% Hebraistic, but they saw it as chiefly Hebraistic. He said the name is used for everything which the name covers, everything the thought or feeling of which is roused in the mind by mentioning, hearing, remembering. We have a derivative of this use in the English word in that we say stop in the name of the law, in the authority of the law, because we're not stopping because some guy's name is law. Anyway, verse 4, it says, chariots of Paro and his army are thrown into the sea, and the choicest of his captains drown in the Yam Suf. That's the Red Sea. They call it Red Sea in the English. 5, the depths cover them. They sunk to the depths like a stone. Then it says in 6, your right hand, Yahweh, is glorious in power. Your right hand, Yahweh, crushes an enemy. Nachmanides said the phrase, your right hand, was idiomatic and was speaking of the strength and power of God. That is correct. Verse 7, and in the greatness of your excellence, you throw down those who rise against you. You send out your rage and consume them as stubble. Onkelos changed the word eat or consume to destroy, because he was actually afraid that someone somewhere would think that God actually ate people if you said that God consumed the enemy. Even Ezra said God needs no weapons to defeat his enemies. His wrath, his anger, his rage was sufficient for the purpose. And think about that. What did God say to Moshe when he was thinking about destroying the children of Israel for worshiping the cow? He said, move back, Moshe. My anger is going to just fry them all, right? So even Ezra kind of has some good footing here, right? Verse 8, and with the blast of your anger, the waters gathered together and stood upright as a wall. Deep flowing streams became firm in the heart of the sea. Now Rashi said the blast from your nostrils, because literally it's the word for nose. And the image behind the word for nose is two nostrils, right? At least that's part of the image. So he says, blast from your nostrils. He said it was figurative expression for anger. When a man is angry, breath issues from his nostrils. The lexicon tells us that the image associated with the Hebrew word comes from the nostrils moving in and out forcibly from the hard breathing of one who is angry. Thus, the blast of your anger or the blast of your wrath is actually more accurate instead of the wind blowing from the nose of God. That's not truly what was being said. Rashbam and Nachmanides thought it poetic of the east wind which divided the sea. However, this isn't a poetic understanding. This is a literal understanding, right? So how is it poetic if it's literal? Onkelos translated the Hebrew word nade as wall, which is what I did as well. The word literally means heap. But it is clear from chapter 14, verse 22, that Moshe was talking about a wall of water, which is why I translated it wall. As same reason for Onkelos. Verse 9, the enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake. I will divide the spoils. My soul will be filled with them. I will draw out my sword. My strength, my hand, will destroy them. Verse 10, you blew with your wind, the sea covered them, and they sank as lead, there's that, as lead or as a stone, in the mighty waters. Verse 11, who is like you among the gods? With a little g, of course. Who is like you among the gods, Yahweh? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, reverence, praise, deeds, and wonders? Onkelos changed who is like you among the gods to there is none beside you, you are God, Lord, there is only you. Because he was worried that people might think there actually were other gods. Nachmanides and even Ezra said that the gods were the heavenly angels. That's not even Jewish, people, that's Christian. Okay, but listen. Men were called gods who were of great rank and physical ability. This is part of the Eastern culture. The most powerful human king with the most powerful human army known to exist on the earth just took on God, and God swatted them like flies. Thus, who is like you, Yahweh, among the wee little gods, the little g's? Just saying. The Sforno says God works wonders which are acknowledged to be above natural phenomena. Okay. Verse 12. You stretched out your right hand and the earth swallowed them. Wait, the earth swallowed them? Ibn Ezra said, your right hand was symbolic of God's power, which of course I agree with. That is correct. Here the text says that the earth swallowed them. Chapter 3 told us that they drowned in the sea and it spit them out again, because they didn't taste like chicken. Just saying. However, be that as it may or may not be, Nachmanides said the sea cast up the bodies and the Egyptians onto the shore, where they decomposed into dust. Okay, if you feel like you have to explain something poetic in literal terms, works for me. Verse 13. You guide with your mercy this people whom you have redeemed. You lead with your strength to your holy dwelling place. Even Ezra said the verb signifies led them gently as a shepherd leads his flock. This is true. There were arguments about where the holy place was. The holy place was to some Canaan. The holy place to some was Mount Moriah. It was, the various different places. People. The holy place is God's chest under the shadow of his wing. Anyway, verse 14. Peoples will hear and tremble. Anguish has seized Peleshet. It's a place, by the way. Then the chiefs of Edom will be afraid. Mighty Moab will be seized with fear. All Canaan will melt. Terror and dread shall fall upon them. And with the greatness of your arm, with the greatness of your strength, they will be still as a stone. There's your other stone, lead, stone. Until your people pass over, O Yahweh, until this people whom you have purchased pass over. Some translations say this people whom you have gotten, but the text clearly says purchased. Even Ezra thought that God purchased Israel when he delivered them from Egypt. But if that's true, think about this. Why would they have been slaves in Egypt, as a punishment for the sins they committed against their covenant, their marriage covenant with God, if they were not already purchased by God when God entered into the covenant with Abraham? So he's wrong. They were purchased at the point of Abraham, not at the point of Egypt. That's when he came back for his bride to take her to his intimate place. 17. You bring them and establish them in the mountain of your inheritance. You have made a place for your dwelling, O Yahweh, a sanctuary, my Lord, which your hands have established. Verse 18, Yahweh reigns forever and ever. Rashi said, in the future, when kingship will be acknowledged by all, that's when God will reign. Rashbam said God would reign when the children settled in the Holy Land. Even Ezra said God would reign when the temple was built. The Sephorno said God would reign when no other idol was worshipped. Why all the futuristic thinking? Why can't God reign right now? I think that God does reign right now, even if we don't recognize his authority over us. The problem isn't his authority. It is in our rebellion and failure to recognize and obey it. I'm just thinking out loud here. Verse 19. For into the sea went Paro and his horses with his chariots and his horsemen. And Yahweh returned the waters on them. But the children of Israel walked on dry ground in the midst of the sea. Then Miriam, the Nebiah, the prophet, the feminine, sister of Aharon, took the tambourine in her hand and went out with all the women following her with tambourines and with dancing. Now Rashi said, so confident were the pious women of Israel in that generation of the miracles that God was about to work for Israel, that they brought timbrels, they brought their tambourines with them out of Egypt with which to celebrate the triumphs. So they were so confident in God, they brought their tambourines so they could celebrate. And while I love what Rashi said, aren't these the same people who told Moshe they would have been better off serving the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness? It could be, maybe, that they just happened to take everything with them that they had, and tambourines happened to be part of their possessions, or among their possessions. Just thinking out loud here. Verse 21. And Miriam sang to them, sing to Yahweh, for triumphing he has triumphed. The horse and rider were thrown into the sea. Verse 22. And Moshe caused Israel to depart from Yamsuf, from the Reed Sea, and they went out to the wilderness of Shur. And they walked 3 days in the wilderness, and they found no water. And they arrived in Maratah, but were not able to drink the waters of Maratah because they were bitter. It was because of this that the name was called Mara. Kind of thank you, Captain Obvious. Verse 24. And the people murmured against Moshe, saying, what will we drink? He cried out to Yahweh, and Yahweh instructed him to throw a tree into the waters, and the waters became sweet. There he placed a statute, not a statue, but a statute, and a judgment. And there he tested them. All right. So now we're going to look at the law, which comes from verse 26, a statute, if you will. Literally, it says, and he said, if after hearing you obey to voice Yahweh, God you, and that which is right in his eyes, you perform and listen to uh, commandments his, and keep all statutes his, all the diseases which put I in Mitzrayim, not I will put on you. For I am Yahweh, healing you. You kind of follow that, right? So it starts off, Vayomer, and he said, very literal. It's to say. The primary signification is to bear forth, hence to bring light. So what? It's to shed light on this subject. It's an explanation. If this is huge. You should write the word in capital letters, I, capital F, and make them bold and underline them and make them a special color. If, because it's all dependent on something. If the next word is shamoa, that's from the word shama. Here, it is to hear with the ears. That's one part of it. It's to understand with the whole heart. That's the second part of it. And then the third part is to obey what you've heard and understood. So in English, though, I can say, man, I'm thirsty. And everyone listening to me right now would agree. They heard me and they know that I'm thirsty, right? But in Hebrew, if you guys don't respond in some way, you haven't heard and you haven't understood. See, if I say I'm thirsty, you either have to say, hey, Rob, why don't you go get something to drink? Or you have to get up and go get something and offer it to me. But you have to respond. You have to do something. And in this word, it's really more about obeying something. Of course, I didn't actually ask you literally to do anything. But so if you hear what I say, if I say, I'm thirsty, will you please go get me something to drink? At that point, now it's a matter of obedience, right? Because you should know exactly what it is that I want. You understood it with your whole heart. Now you have to act upon it. If any one of these three things is missing, you didn't hear. So it says, if after hearing, shamoa tishma, if after you've heard, you listened to it with your whole heart, you understood it, and after you've done that, then you obey, you do what it says. You obey what? Leko. The voice, whether of animals or men, both speaking, crying out, joy or sorrow. It's of God speaking and thundering. The voice is loud and scary, apparently. If you hear the voice of what? It says Yahweh, it uses the proper name of God. So if after you hear the voice of God, you understand it, and you obey it. It says Yahweh, then it says Eloheha, your God. It's really God, you, but it means your God to us. Elohim, this is coming from the word Elohim. This is a root it's a generic word. They use this word of men, of human beings. They use it of messengers that come from heaven, what people in the West think of as angels. They use it of false gods, of Baal, of Buddha. It doesn't make any difference. Whoever your God is, in Hebrew they would call it Elohim. They're not. It doesn't mean it's the real God. It just is the generic word for God. It's from the root Allah. Ever heard of a God named Allah? I bet you have. And it comes from that. And the root is to worship and to adore a deity, to be smitten with reverence. But the word is from the root to be round and hence to be thick, fat of the abdomen, belly, or butt. So they're calling their God, they named him Fatso. And you're like, what? And if you tell a Muslim that now, you just about get punched in the mouth. Because, the West has crept in. They don't realize this, but the West has crept in, and, being fat is an insult. But back in the day, back in this time period, they used that word because Their God was the fat one. Their God was the one that lived an opulent life. Their God was the one that was wealthy beyond imagination. And only the wealthy could be fat back then. So this was complementary. This was something to build him up. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Just because of what the West has done with it now, nobody should be trying to make Allah something that it isn't. There's no reason to. Anyway, El is part of this. El doesn't actually mean God. It's used and translated as God very often because they are speaking of Yahweh. That's true. But El actually just means strong or mighty or hero, more specifically. And then we have Eloha, because remember, this is Eloheha is the word. It's majesties in plural. It's of the majesties of the mighty one, right? So then it says, Vaha Yashar, and that which is right. That which is right. It's of straightness of a way, because that's what they call right. What is right? What ought to be done? That which is just. What we ought to speak. In other words, telling the truth. Use of integrity and uprightness and that kind of stuff. So what is actually right? Then it says, Be'enai, Enayim, your eye, your eyes, what's in the eyes, in his, what is in his eyes. And remember who his is here. It's Yahweh Elohecha. It's Yahweh your God. So if you do what's right in his eyes, then it says, Ta'aseh, you perform. You're going to perform what's right in his eyes. It's to produce, to manufacture, to fabricate, to do something, right? So what you're going to do, you need to do what's right according to God's eyes, what's right in his eyes. And it says, V'ha'azanta, and be sharp, be acute, pointed. The picture behind this is of dogs with their ears up. So listen intently like a dog does. It's more than just listen, it's listen intently. This is la meets votai. If you listen intently, you perk up those ears, you're making sure you're getting it exactly right. And what are you going to get right? The mitzvah tie. Ever heard of the mitzvah? The commandments. His commandments. Who's the his? Yahweh Elohecha. Yahweh your God. His commandments. Those are precepts, especially used in the precept of God. The idea of prohibition is found in the commandments of Yahweh which ought not be done. So you don't do what it says not to do, you do what it says to do. That's the point. Then it says, Veshamata, and keep you. So you're going to do those things, but now you're going to keep them. You're going to watch them. You're going to guard them. It's like a gardener is taking pulling the weeds out so that the plants can grow well and all that. You're not just going to do, it says, let's say the law says wash your car. You're not just going to wash your car. You're going to make sure, you're going to think about the details. If I used a toothbrush around those little edgy things, could I get more of that, when you wax a car, you get that white stuff. I learned that a long time ago when I first started waxing my own car. What was I, 9? I come from a different family. But I learned that if you used a toothbrush around like the edge where it said Ford or Chevy or whatever it was you had, you could get all that white stuff off of there. Your car looked more detailed. This is what we're talking about when it's first it's you're doing it, but you're not just doing it. Now you're thinking about it. Now you're looking at ways that you can make it better, ways that you can make sure that you're doing it exactly right. And then it says coal. That's all of them. We don't get to say, well, but those are for the Levites. No, he said all of them. Well, but those only happen in Israel. No, he said all of them. Then it says, who, guy, all of his statutes. It wasn't enough that you had to do all of his commandments. Now you got to do all his statutes. That which is established or defined, an appointed portion of labor, a task, a defined limit, a bound, an appointed time, an appointed law, a statute, an ordinance of the laws given by God to man, a decree of God, a custom observed as though it were a law. Please stand and cover yourselves for the reading of our verse. A custom observed as if it was a law. And for the Christians at this point, if they happen to be listening, what did Yeshua tell you? He said, when you go into your prayer closet, what do you think this is? This is what the Jews call the prayer closet. He said, when you go into the prayer closet, you shut the door. This is how you shut the door of your prayer closet. Yeah, Christians, you observe a custom as though it were a law. Will you always be able to do that? Well, not necessarily. I'm tied to some wires here. If I did that, it would ruin the whole video. But you guys don't know this, but at the end of the thing, when I can disconnect from them, I stand up and do all that stuff. So anyway, then it says kol, which is totality. That's everything. All of ha-mahala, all of the diseases. It's from hala, and I know that sounds like bread to you, right? Properly to be rubbed, hence to be polished, smooth. To be worn down in strength, to be infirm, to be sick, disease from a wound that can scarcely be healed. From a wound that can scarcely be healed. Doesn't it sound like something we talked about last week? It's in hipael, which is mahala, to make oneself sick. In other words, a self-inflicted wound. God's telling you that if you don't live according to his law, if you don't hear it and obey it, your wound will be self-inflicted. Yep, that's what he just said. Then it says asher, that's which. It says, all of these diseases which, all these self-inflicted diseases which. See, Paro, all of this stuff that happened to him, was that not self-inflicted? Did they not go to him and say, let my people go, or else this will happen? Yeah, they did. And he said, not so much. I ain't going to do what you say. It's a self-inflicted wound. All of those things which Santi, which it's literally put I, but it's which I put to set to place, to constitute, to establish, right? Which I put, Vanitz Rayu, which I put in Egypt, on the Egyptians. You can say it either way. And then this is lo, that's no, that's not, it's the negative article. Asim, I will put, not I will put. I will not put, I will not place, I will not constitute, I will not establish what? This Alecha, on you. So all of that stuff that was placed on them will not be placed on you if I-F, capital I, capital F, bold letters, underlined, bold, red letters, whatever, underlined letters. I will not put them on you. It says key, which is for because. Because. Why will I not do that? Well, because I need. I am that I am. Because I am Yahweh. I'm the God who can do this. I'm the one with all the power, right? I'm the one that can, if I say it, it'll happen, right? Because I'm Yahweh. Then he says, Rofecha. It's healer, you literally, but I'm Yahweh God. I'm the one who heals you. Properly, though, it's to sew together, to mend. It's from the sense of seizing and plucking. The root imitates the sound of a person sewing rapidly. So God's working real hard, right? But is that the kind of healing, as my wife pointed out to me this morning, is that the kind of healing that's instantaneous? God says, let it be, and it's done? Or is this the kind that takes a while? Because you have to heal it up, and then you got to go get the stitches taken back out, right? It's going to take a while. That's the promise. Not that there's a instantaneous miracle, but that healing will come. It will come. To heal a wound of a person, which is done by sewing the wound. God is said to heal a person or a people or a land. In other words, to restore to pristine felicity, it says, inasmuch as restoration to pristine felicity depends on remission of sins, to pardon, to comfort. Rashi said about this, I instruct you in my commandments. Is that really what he said? Which will prevent you from falling victim to disease. Oh. So he's using the phrase, I will instruct you in my commandments. He said that's used of someone preventing you from falling into a disease, like a physician who warns against eating something which could cause an illness. Okay, here's the translation. In other words, Shemot, or Exodus 15:26. And he said to them, if after hearing you obey the voice of Yahweh, God, and that which is right in his eyes, and you listen to and obey his mitzvot, his commandments, and you keep his hope, his statutes, all the diseases which I put in Mitzrayim will not be placed on you, for I am Yahweh who heals you. I want to, I want to go off the script here. The paper blew away, but they have returned to me. Okay, I want to go off script here just for a little while. First thing you got to do here is God saying, if you listen to his laws, his commandments, his statutes, whatever you want to call them, however you want to look at it, he's making sure everything's covered here. If you listen to all that, now mind you, the word Torah was never used. Just want to point that out. The word Devarim, for as in 10 Commandments, not used. God said the mitzvot and the hope, the commandments and the statutes. That's all the 613 laws, as it's thought of by Judaism. If you do all that stuff, these diseases will not come upon you. So we have to think, well, what were those diseases? I don't have the right pair of glasses, Tony. They're right over there on my phone. Sorry about that, guys. Get off here quickly. Okay, so plague number 1 was the water turning to blood, right? Yes, it was. So what was the plague, really? What is it that God's telling you? If you'll obey his 613 laws, this won't happen to you. He's saying that God's going to protect your water supply. The second plague was the frogs. God's going to keep frogs off my land? That one I had a little trouble with too. But God's doing some research and discovered that the Egyptians had a goddess. And they depicted her as, it was a female body with the head of a frog. It was their fertility god. So he's going to protect your water, your drinking water. He's going to protect your fertility, both of human and animal. The fertility is going to be protected by God simply by us doing everything that God asks us to do. To more than just do it, it's to keep it. We're going to find ways to just really get down and detail with our obedience. Then the next thing was the dirt, the dust turned into lice. So God's going to take care of our land. It's really important because what happened during the Dust Bowl? Well, everybody's dirt wound up in California. Why do you think everybody went to Bakersfield? I'm just saying. No, right? The land wasn't taken care of. They they overplowed everything. The wind blew all the good topsoil off, and then there was no nutrients for the plants that did survive, right? So God's going to take care of the land. There's going to be nutrition in that dirt, uh, just by doing what God asked us to do. Then there's the infestation of insects, and this isn't as in insects that eat your plants. This is insects just infesting your house, infesting your property and all that kind of stuff. That's going to go away. Then the next one was the death of the livestock. So this is the promise that God's going to take care of our livestock. And then the next one was boils. He's going to take care of our physical bodies. The next one was thunder and hail. He's going to protect us from the weather. Uh, the eighth plague was of the pests that actually eat our plants and that kind of stuff. He's going to protect us from that. The ninth plague was the darkness, right? So we're going to get a proper share of sunlight. And the 10th one was the loss of our wealth and our family. God's going to protect us from the loss of our wealth and our family. What about Job? By the way, Job lived long before God made this. Just because it comes after doesn't mean he didn't live before. Job lived at the time of Abraham. This is way after that. Those are the things that God's going to protect his people from if they just listen to, do, and find better ways, to improve what they're doing. If they do those things, God will protect us from all of that stuff. That's quite a promise. That's a whopper of a promise, right? But God made that promise. Something else that I wanted to say before I moved on. He said to them, if after hearing you obey the voice of Yahweh your God, and that which is right, his eyes. Last night I began to talk to Donna, and I was talking about the politics going on because, as some of you may know, yesterday the Republicans, who now have control of the House, the Senate, and the White House, failed at stopping Obamacare. Wow, right? And so I'm like, what's going on in this world? You've got the leaders of the Democratic Party are among the most evil, most wicked human beings I've ever seen in my life. Nothing they say is true. Nothing they do is for the benefit of the people. It's always for the benefit of their wallet. Nancy Pelosi, one of the first things that she did was get some insider information and make $5 million. Wow. And that's when she first started. God knows what they're worth now. They go in barely making enough to pay their bills and they come out billionaires because there's all the payola and all the corruption that goes on. They live by a different set of rules. And I'm like, the thing I don't understand more than anything is why are these people so intent on making laws that benefit criminals? They're right now, one of the things that the left is really pushing are the bathrooms where any man can go in any bathroom anytime he wants to, regardless of whether he can just say that he's a woman. He doesn't have to be dressed like one. He doesn't have to put lipstick on. He can just walk in all hairy faced and hairy chested and go in and do. This is a matter of making our children, our daughters, our little girls unsafe. And they're pushing people to make these laws. Even the NFL tried to push people into this. The NFL. And they've paid dearly for that mistake. They haven't backed off, but they paid dearly for it. They didn't back off, they just shut up. The NBA's doing it. These are laws that benefit criminals. These are not laws that set people free that are oppressed. That is not what's going on. They're making laws that benefit criminals and the mentally insane. And it's just like, what is all of this? One of the things that I've had trouble really getting my mind around for years was, what is the resistance? I know that the Bible never talks about the devil. It doesn't. That's an English translation. They took the word Hasatan and capitalized the S. And so now it becomes the Satan, or Satan as a name. And they took something that was a something and made it a someone. And that is confusing enough, but how do you put this whole thing together? Well, this is what it really boils down to. Every human being is born with the resistance in them. It's part of what makes us human. It's what keeps us alive. Resistance is necessary for life itself, because if you don't have resistance, you won't stop yourself from putting your hand in a flame. That heat warns you. It resists your urge to put your hand in that flame. So to that degree, that's what it was designed for. But for those who decide to give in to the resistance, people who, this is how it works for an alcoholic. They think about their next drink, and they think about it, and they think about it, and they think about it, and they think about it some more, and the next thing you know, the only thing that they ever think about, the only thing that they ever care about is their next drink. That is when they have truly and utterly surrendered themselves servants to the resistance. The resistance has consumed that human being, and they have become a slave to it. It's something that was put in them to protect them. And it's the same way with drugs. The drug addict does exactly the same thing. The serial killer does exactly the same thing. They think about killing and think about killing until it finally consumes them and they become a killer. The person who goes around ragey all the time, the one who's always acting out and yelling at people and stuff like that, the bully, they become that because there's something made them angry. I went through this because my ex-wife stood outside the courtroom and told me that she didn't love our children. But because she knew it would hurt me, she was going to destroy those children and make sure that they were the opposite of everything that I ever wanted them to be. I've never shared that with my children. I'm relatively sure they won't be watching these videos. So I say it to you. But she succeeded. And that made me angry. I became very, very angry. And I thought about her words and thought about them and thought about them and thought about them until it finally consumed me. And I became a servant to the resistance. That's how this works. I did what was right in my eyes. In my eyes, I had been harmed. Somebody was deliberately trying to destroy my children, and the government backed her up. This is a woman that suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, and they gave her custody. So I was angry about that. I was angry, just the anger all around, and it just eventually it consumed me. And I became the servant to that resistance. Because I started off doing what was right in my eyes. I was wrong. My children were being wrong. I had the right to be angry, right? And it consumed me. That's why forgiveness is so important. But when we get on this path, I came to a place I'll never forget. It was years ago. I told Donna, I can't stop this. I can't control this. I can't keep my mouth shut anymore. I can't not fly off in a rage anymore. I got to a point where I believed that it had so utterly consumed me that there was no way back. Right here is the secret. The secret to all of our ills. Let's do what God said. Let's obey His commandments. Let's find ways to make it let's find ways to make it work better. And in doing so, by doing it His way, that will eventually consume us. And we will eventually become His servant rather than the servant of the resistant. Verse 27, which I do believe is our final verse, yeah. It says, and they came to Elima, it's the name of a place, and there were 12 water wells and 70 palm trees, and they camped there by the waters. Rashi said 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, corresponding to the 12 tribes and the 70 elders of Israel, respectively. I totally agree with that. Even Ezra added that Scripture especially mentions the palm trees to point out that unlike Mara, remember that, the bitter waters, that's what that means? The waters were sweet and refreshed the soil so that the palm trees were able to thrive. This concludes chapter 15. Shalom, Bishop.